I think Zelensky and his friends will obviously know when there are Russian tanks in Kiev. I'm afraid that's what it's probably going to take. And I think Mr. Putin has figured that out. And I sense that something really big is coming. Remember, they have over 100,000 Russian troops in Belarus to the north of Kiev. They have 700,000 or so in and around Ukraine. These forces can be moved and concentrated very quickly in any number of different directions. What's left of the Ukrainian army is now taking a beating in front of Kharkov and falling back towards Kiev. It's a matter of making the decision to pull the trigger and move decisively over the upper river and then down from the north. And I think that's probably going to happen. I mean, how else do you make your point? And I think Putin, again, as we've discussed before, is the one Russian who has always been most favorably disposed to us in the West. He's lived in the West. He knows the West. This is the last thing that he wanted. He has no interest in conquering anything. He doesn't want to cross that river. He doesn't want to have to govern Ukrainians. That's the last thing he wants. He's not a fool. He wants very much what Solzhenitsyn wanted, which is this Russia, only Russia, with a few exceptions, because there have always been non-Russians in Russia. And many of them, as you've seen with the Chechens and others, have fought very valiantly for Russia. This was true under the Tsars. But this is not something that he wants in Ukraine. He knows that the people in the West want to govern themselves. In fact, in the Kremlin, people openly chuckle over the Poles and their interest in Western Ukraine. And the view is if the Poles are dumb enough and want to go in there, let them do it, because they all know how that worked out in the past. The Poles and the Ukrainians have killed each other with great glee and enthusiasm. You know, the Ukrainians during the German Second World War, when the Germans were in Ukraine, killed 100,000 Polish men, women, and children. There's so much hatred, blood, and violence left over in that country that the Russians don't want to go in there. But if the Poles want to go, they're saying, yeah, good luck with that. I think they just want this to be over and get back to normal. There's never been, as John Mearsheimer has said it 1,000 times, every time somebody brings up this nonsense, well, Putin wants to conquer Eastern Europe, restore the Soviet Empire.
Well, that's Lindsey Graham's nonsense.
Yeah, it's absolute bull. It's not true. And I hope that people in Europe are waking up to it. I think they probably are waking up quicker because, again, here in the United States, Judge, most Americans don't care.
Right.
They're not interested. You know that.
Right.
That's the problem, because when it's not that we're complacent. I mean, actually speaking, I think it's very healthy for most Americans to worry about their own country and stay in it. I think that's a good thing. And they're much more worried about the border and this migrant invasion, and they should be. But the problem is that gives license to people like Lindsey Graham and the multitude of globalists and neocons over the last 30 years that have dragged us into all of these countries. Nobody really understands it. Nobody pays much attention to it. Unless you kill 3,000 or 4,000 Americans on one day, nobody wakes up and pays much attention. That's the problem.
Colonel Macgregor, it's a pleasure to listen to you. Thank you for your analysis. I know we were all over the place, but you're very informative and very, very much appreciated by my team, by me, and of course by the huge viewing audience. Thank you, sir. Have a great weekend.
Same to you, Judge.
Thank you.